What's going on, fellas? So today we'll be taking a look at how dangerous a Muay Thai arsenal can be at the highest level of the UFC. Starring Carlos Prates versus Della Madalena. Now, before we get into the video, we do have a striking concept to keep in mind, and that is going to be space is key. To create this analogy, we're going to start off with a chessboard. Now, on this chessboard, we're going to have fighter A and fighter B. Both fighters want to occupy the space that you see here in the middle, marked off with the X. And in order to do so, someone is going to have to initiate an attack. And so we're going to see fighter A initiate his attack. And because he did so, he now is able to occupy that bit of territory that they were fighting over and also push fighter B back into a unfavorable position. Now we see that fighter B, in the process of stepping back, is forced to relinquish the territory that he once held. And because he is now no longer in the center of the board, he's put in a position to where he cannot retreat any further, thus making his next few moves very predictable. One thing that fighter B can do is reinitiate an attack in order to reclaim that lost territory, or he can flank around the sides of the board and try to recenter his position. Now, the reason why I use this analogy is to show you guys why space is so important in MMA, and also anytime we give up space, the importance of having to reclaim that space. This analogy also goes to show us that fighting isn't linear, but there are also many different angles you can take in order to keep yourself from being put in bad position. Now, with that being said, let's take a look and see how Carlos Prates was able to use these same concepts in order to force JDM into bad position and eventually finish the fight. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is how Prates uses his jab to keep JDM from reclaiming any lost ground. Now, in this clip that we're about to get into, I want us to notice the position that each fighter is in right now. Prates here is positioned on this red section of the cage here, and JDM is controlling the center. Prates is then going to fire a 1-2, which forces JDM to give up some space, and in the process of him doing so, Prates is going to fill in that gap and take the position that JDM had. Now, once he gets set on this new ground that he has acquired, he is going to get right to work and begin throwing his jab at JDM, keeping him from re-entering his range and claiming that ground that he lost. JDM, being frustrated that he cannot regain this ground, is going to even go to the extent of breaking his base and rhythm stepping. And just another thing that I want us to realize is that the entire time that JDM goes in rhythm steps, Prates is in position to work. He's ready to go. Now, just to break down the mechanics that Prates likes to use while throwing his jab, one thing that I noticed is that Prates likes to lean in over his front leg and bait in reactions from his opponent. From here, he'll keep his jab hand by his hip and flick his jab up from his hip, making it difficult for JDM to see the jab coming. He's also extremely long when he's throwing his jab in this manner, and this helps him keep his opponent at bay. The next step that we have in Prates' jab is going to be how he builds attacks off of this weapon. One of his go-to attacks is going to be his 1-2 after firing his jab. And in this clip specifically, we're going to see how Prates is going to fill that gap right after he forces JDM to take a few steps back and give up some real estate. In these other clips here, we're just going to see different ways that Prates likes to build off of his jab, whether that's using his rear kick. Sometimes he'll use his knees. And the entire time that his combos are building, he is taking space from Jack and forcing him into unfavorable positions. Once he gets his opponent worried about damage, then he will begin adding on to the psychological effect by throwing in feints. Since he already holds his hands in a low position, it makes it really uncomfortable as he approaches you and starts showing you different angles with his shoulders. In these scenarios here, we see that JDM is retreating into a high guard because he's not aware of what kind of attack might come at him. Now, I do want to break down this last clip because this was just insane when I seen this. Prates was able to completely break Jack down without firing a single shot. And it just goes to show how much feints are beneficial once you already begin landing heavy damage on your opponent. Now, as we break down this clip, I just want you guys to keep in mind how much space Jack is giving up for free. Mind you, no shot is being fired at him yet. He's just being overwhelmed solely by feints, and yet he's giving up so much free real estate. Prates is going to begin walking towards Jack, and he's going to give him about 6 different looks with his shoulders and his hands. And in the process of doing so, Jack is going to retreat into his high guard, and he actually gets so uncomfortable in this position that he decides to disengage completely and reset in the center of the cage. Now let's get into some of the hand controls that we've seen Prates use throughout this fight. So in this first clip here, we're going to see Prates use his lead hand control in the open stance to angle off, and he attempts to find a shot, but it doesn't wind up being there. Either way, just a great display of awareness and positioning. Now in this second clip, we're going to see Prates take the same exact grip that he did in the first clip, and this time he maintains that wrist control, and instead of looking to size up his left hand down a pipe, he's actually going to throw a head kick, and it winds up dropping Jack. Now this next clip that we're going to see, JDM is going to start by throwing out his jab, and in the process of doing so, Prates is going to meet his glove out in the air and attempt to control the wrist of JDM. Now the next time that Prates goes to establish hand control, JDM is going to raise his hand into a high guard. One thing to notice too, that you can see this control that Prates is taking on Jack is really making him uncomfortable, because the way that he tries to get this grip off of his hand is by bringing his left hand down in order to separate that connection. Now when Prates gets the grip for the third time, JDM does the same exact motion with his lead hand. Now the thing that's dangerous about the way that Jack is separating that hand is it leaves him open to getting cracked on that same side, since he's bringing his left hand down by his hip. If Prates were able to control that wrist and step in with the same side lead elbow, that side of Jack's face would be wide open. In this final clip, we're going to see an example of Prates using hand controls after being offensive to shut down any possible counterattacks. Prates starts out his combination by feinting and then throwing a 1-2. And we see after he throws his 1-2, he's going to look to control both hands of Jack, nullifying any possible counters, and then deciding to disengage. Now, when we take a look at the Muay Thai arsenal that Carlos Prates uses and possessed throughout this fight, we're including elbows, knees, kicks, and the use of the clinch. Starting off with the way that he uses his knees, Carlos is already a tall fighter, making his knees a very dangerous weapon for his opponents. He will use his knees to intercept, land heavy damage, and break his opponent's rhythm as they try to enter in and close that gap. In this fight specifically, he would punish Jack's use of the high guard by blasting Jack anytime he ducked his head into that high guard position. Something that set up these knees extremely well, one was the use of his jab, because it then forces Jack to want to close that distance, and then also the use of his feints, because once he got Jack biting on feints, Jack would retreat into that high guard, crunch down, and that would be a dangerous position he would put himself in and eventually lead to him getting hit with a knee. One thing that Prates does really well after firing his knees is that he would look to make some type of connection with his hands in order to keep his opponent at bay. One, defensively, in this case preventing Jack from getting to his hips, but also offensively to set up his next strike, the elbow. Breaking down Prates' use of his elbows is something of beauty to watch. He will set up this strike in a variety of ways, but his favorite is to use his frames or his post. Unfortunately for Jack, because he resorts to a high guard, it leaves him a vulnerable target once Prates begins putting his hands on Jack to set up his elbow strikes. In this clip specifically, we see that Prates has Jack pinned up against the cage, a perfect position to begin setting up our elbows. He's going to start by flicking out his jab, and as he does so, Jack actually reaches out and controls that lead hand of Prates. Now this would have been a great opportunity for Jack to pull down this hand and use his own lead elbow over top of this hand, but instead he cowers into a defensive posture, and Prates begins by landing his left elbow. From here, he posts his right hand on Jack sizes up his left elbow again, and lands a hard one right on the ear of Jack. In this clip where we see Jack get dropped by this left elbow, we're going to see Prates post his right hand on Jack and begin moving his body back to create space. Now this space is going to give Prates a lot of power when this elbow lands, and even though Jack has his hand up, the elbow winds up getting around the guard and still sits him down. Breaking down the kicks in this fight, when both guys were in the open stance, we seen that Carlos tended to target the body and the head with his rear kick. Poor Jack got his legs chewed apart out there. Carlos made it a priority to target the calf of Jack anytime he stepped into that closed stance, matching him in southpaw, and you can audibly hear the pain that Jack was in from these calf kicks. In this sequence, we see that as they come out of the clinch, Carlos is going to pop Jack with his jab, and we know that all Jack knows is a high guard, so as Carlos reaches out with both hands to control both hands of Jack, he's going to fire a calf kick at the same exact time. Now, what makes this worse is that as Jack tends to crunch down into that high guard, he's putting more weight on that lead leg. So when Carlos lands this kick, which he had already landed multiple prior to this, Jack can no longer take the damage, and he visibly shows it to Carlos. After this kick lands, Prates is going to pop Jack with another jab and then chop the calf again. Jack can no longer take the pain anymore, and he has no choice but to go down. And Prates, being the sick man that he is, walks over to Jack as he's on the ground and begins targeting that calf. I thought this was great IQ from Prates. We see guys land these similar style kicks when they're above their opponents, but especially right after you sit him down, that is the best time to begin chopping that calf. And this entire sequence is eventually what led to the finish. Last but not least, looking at Prates' use of the clinch, man, does he have an amazing clinch. Not to glaze or anything like that, but let's just break it down. And we've seen that as he gets his opponents in the clinch, not only does he look to land damage, but he also looks to control them, put them in bad positions, and shut down any possible offense. Prates is really aware to stay inside his opponent's upper body the entire time. He's looking to get collar ties or inside bicep controls, and anytime that he's on the outside, he would also look to pummel his way back into inside position. He also does a great job at using his head position to keep his opponent upright against the cage. This leaves his opponent's body open to getting kneed, and also makes it really uncomfortable for them because it is extremely difficult to get any kind of leverage from this position. Just a systematic beatdown and a beautiful display of Muay Thai in this sport. You know, you don't really see too many guys coming in full Muay Thai style, and so the way that Carlos Prates implements his Muay Thai into his MMA is a thing of beauty to watch. But that's all I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed this breakdown and would like more content like this, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Also, guys, I'll actually be fighting June 6th. This is going to be my third professional fight, so if you're from and around the Philly area and would like to come out and watch, you can reach out to me on Instagram, get your tickets. I would love to have you there and support. But once again, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Oos.